Hey, what's going on, Fan Clan? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Phantump. We are, it's Friday. It's May 31st. We are on day 152. I should have celebrated yesterday a lot better than what I did. Yesterday was day 151. Today's day 152 of consecutive content on YouTube, whether it be a short, a live, or a long form content. We've made it 150. That's impressive. That is way more than I thought I would make it. Still not even halfway to the goal. So goals are probably going to get adjusted quite a bit. But we are a week after the release of Twilight Masquerade and a week before the giveaway of this custom binder, which contains the Twilight Masquerade master set. We are giving away an entire master set of Twilight Masquerade to one lucky subscriber. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's a video right up here. This is what the thumbnail looks like. Go back on that video, leave a like and a comment on that video, and then boom, you are entered to win. We're going to announce that winner next Friday, June 7th. At the beginning of the video, I'll do one of these and say congratulations. Then we'll verify your account and get the master set out to you. Very, very exciting. Very exciting for that. We're going to talk about Twilight Masquerade in today's video because it's nuts. Like, there's really nothing else to say about it. It's buyouts. There's weird things happening. It always happens this way for some reason. This is the new norm when it comes to collecting Pokemon cards. And this is, before we start, I do want to say this. If you haven't bought that much of Twilight Masquerade yet, don't do it. Just wait. There's some illustration rares that are fairly cheap. There's some full arts that are fairly cheap. Focus on those. Shore up your master set. If you want to buy the commons, the uncommons, the reverse hollows, maybe some of the ultra rares, go nuts. But some of the special illustration rares, which are clearly getting bought up, when Pokemon decided we're going to change pull rates and make it a little bit more difficult for people to achieve their chase, starting with Temporal Forces, we really started noticing these buyouts on some of the special illustration rares, which are a lot more difficult to pull. We had issues in Paradox Rift as well, but that was a lot more competitive based. Obviously, Roaring Moon was a really big one right away that jumped up over $100, but it was extremely playable. There was a lot of thought that it was going to be the best deck in the format, the BDIF. Didn't really end up happening, didn't really come to fruition because of that. The Roaring Moon has dropped a lot. Now, Temporal Forces, a lot of those special illustration rares, because they were lower listed. Now, we also have to remember there's a lot less people who are opening packs than there used to be. There are people who have just kind of wised up and they're like, well, I'm not going to open up a bunch of packs. I'm just going to wait a little bit and buy singles. And because of that, the quantities that get listed on sites like TCG Player are much lower than what we're typically accustomed to. You also have a lot of storefronts who aren't buying as much product, who aren't opening as much product because prices and margins are nowhere near how they used to be. And because of that, it takes a little bit longer for that supply to really add up. And since there's a lower supply on the market, it's easier to kind of get manipulated and bought out. And with pull rates being a little bit more difficult, people kind of FOMO a little bit. Don't do that. That is not the way that you want to collect Pokemon cards. I just would not recommend it. You're going to end up overpaying. We're going to talk about some of those today, but every single new set, what we do is we take a screenshot of really like the top, 30 cards, 40 cards, somewhere around there. The most expensive cards from a set on opening day, as soon as they go live on TCG Player in the morning. You can sell on TCG Player if you are a pre-order store, pretty much any time before a set releases. But if you're a normal store who's not authorized for pre-releases, you cannot sell on TCG Player until early in the morning on release day. So we take screenshots of these prices on release day and then kind of compare them a week later to see what happened. Nowadays, it's a lot different because a lot of times you do see some swings, you do see some cards getting bought out, and the best thing that you can do is just kind of wait it out, and you will have instances like Temporal Forces, for example, where a lot of those special illustration rares got bought out and then came way back down several weeks later. Now, Raging Bolt ended up being like this big thing with Teal Mask, Ogerpon, and now with NAIC coming up, it's kind of exploded again in price. Those things do happen, and especially with Worlds coming up, somebody could be like, well, Blood Moon Ursaluna is beat AIF, that's going to kill it at Worlds, and all of a sudden the special illustration rare Blood Moon Ursaluna could skyrocket, but it will come back down. It will come back down eventually. It's not going to be a situation where it continues to climb. The market does even out. It is extremely cyclical, so don't FOMO on these cards. Okay, with that being said, let's flip you guys around. Let's look at where prices are right now. We're going to start out with the top two in the set, which is the Greninja EX. Not quite as competitively viable as I think a lot of people hoped. First of all, the special illustration is absolutely slapping. Yes, I said slapping. It's really, really cool looking. It's beautiful. Not as good in competitive play as I think a lot of people were hoping it would be. Not bad, but not great either. Came in on opening day with a release price of $146.05. It really hasn't changed. It did come down a little bit and then kind of got bought out a little bit more. Now it's sitting at $145.05. So it's down about a percentage point. I don't know why I have a green font there. I'm dumb, I guess. But it's down about 1 percentage point from where it was last week. Relatively flat. The Carmine is the big one on Wednesday. So a few days ago, that's really when this one started skyrocketing a little bit. You could tell it started getting bought up a lot. Now, special illustration rares take a couple boxes to pull, and the variations in this set, there's not a ton of them. Not as many as what we saw from Paldea Evolve, but there are more than what we saw from Temporal Forces. I think there's only one more. But Carmine, definitely a fan favorite for a lot of people, and because of that, it has jumped up over $100. Currently selling at $106.70. I put this together yesterday. When I was looking this morning, it was up to about $114, with the lowest one listed being $127. So this is one of those cards you really don't want to wait, or you really want to wait on. If you can find it for significantly less, like we sold it, I think, for like $90 on our website, and we left it at that price point, and I think they ended up selling yesterday once people noticed that they were, $25 cheaper than what they were selling for on TCG Player. That's fine, but be careful. Like, don't overspend on a card like this. There will be more supply that gets open. There will be more supply that is out there. I don't think that this card's going to stay at $150, but it is up 14.5% over the past week, continuing to trend upward. Like I said, the lowest one listed right now was $127. Then we've got some that are going the opposite direction, like that Blood Moon Ursaluna special illustration rare that we were talking about before. This one is down to $58.36, so it did drop about 24.22%. It came out on release day at $77.01, so it has cooled off a little bit, continuing to trend downward. Not a huge drop. Typically, what we're used to seeing when it comes to some of these sets is 50 to 60, even higher than that, 70% drops sometimes. I remember Battle Styles was like 80% drops on a lot of these cards. We don't see that as much anymore. So when you're seeing 20 to 30%, that tells me that there's really not as much being opened of a newer set. It's got decent legs. There's some people who are kind of warming up to it. Remember, this is the last set now until the end of summer. August is when we'll get Shrouded Fable, and we'll talk about that down the road. Leave it up to you to decide if you're excited about that set or not. But I think a lot of people are starting to warm up to this set a little bit, and because of that, there seems to be a little bit more demand than what there initially was. Here's the Teal Mask Ogerpon. This is the one that most people are talking about as far as a competitive play goes. 33.1% of a drop. This is just the special illustration rare, and this is the only Teal Mask Ogerpon that's going in the opposite direction. This is the only one that's going down. All the other ones have gained quite a bit of ground. It's sitting at $43.59 currently, so down from $65.16. The Buddy Buddy Poffin secret rare. This is a very interesting secret rare because typically the gold cards don't do well. They never have, but Buddy Buddy Poffin, extremely playable, more playable than, it's a 4 of in a lot of decks that are out there right now in competitive play, and because of that, people are looking for additional ways to kind of speed up consistency in their deck, search out their cards, determine what's being prized, and it's a lot easier to determine, hey, I'm missing a gold copy of Buddy Buddy Poffin. Obviously, that's in my prize card, so that's not going to be able to help me draw 2 cards or add 2 cards to my bench, 2 basic Pokemon. So this one doing extremely well. $44.71 is the current sale price of this. It is down 31.25% from $65.03. That's where it started out on opening day. Parent is another one that's been bought up a little bit, so this one's up 35.75% over the past week. You can see it started at $64.26. It's up to $87.23. The great thing about this card is it makes a little bit of a picture when you combine it with that Hisuian Growlithe illustration rare, and I think part of that is probably why this card has grown so much over the past week, is people want both copies of those. They want a singular copy of each, so that way they can put in their binder. It makes it look really cool. Because of that, this card has jumped up quite a bit to $87.23. Here's the Lana's Aid, another special illustration rare. This one heading in the opposite direction. This one's a little bit bigger of a drop than what we've seen from the last several cards we looked at. 37.11%. It's dropped over the past week. It went from $53.36 down to $33.56. So some of these cards just waiting a week. Obviously, much better timing to buy right now than a week ago. the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. So this is the special illustration rare variant of the Water Mask. Is down to $28.67. That one's dropped about 34% from $43.47. The Eevee, this is a card I think that's going to be strong for a long time. Obviously, Eevee, one of the most popular Pokemon in existence, and historically, even though there's been so many different print runs of Eevee, it has always done well. Eevee is just one of those cards that a lot of people like to collect. You talk about what people's collection goals are and things like that, and a lot of people are like, well, I want one of every Pikachu card, I want one of every Eevee card, and those are the ones that kind of come up the most, right? And because of that, Pokemon has printed an absolute ton of them between set releases and promos, and here you have an illustration rare Eevee with several different cute looking Eevees on it. Because of that, it's gone up about 12.66%. It even started out fairly high as an illustration rare at $41.78. Now it's sitting at $47.07 currently. Here's the Fire Mask. Oh man, this is the one I couldn't pull for so long. It took me almost 3,000 booster packs to pull this bad boy, and it's not even expensive. It's actually one of the cheapest illustration or special illustration rares in the set. It's currently selling for $21.42. It's dropped 48% over the past week. It went from $41.33 down to $21.42, continuing to fall. The next one we have is the Kieran. This one actually went up 8.83%. So this one's actually moving in the opposite direction, heading upwards a little bit from $34.65 up to $37.71. Then we have the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. This is another special illustration rare. You can let me know in the comments section down below what you think about the Ogerpons when it comes to the special illustration rares. I had hoped that they would hit a little bit better when I pulled them out of the pack. Now, obviously, it took me forever to pull the Heat Mask one, but they didn't really hit as hard as I was hoping. Like, there's not enough difference as far as the variation goes from the full art variant, those full art Terras, than there is from the special illustration rares. I think that's where it's kind of lacking. They could have done a lot more with the Ogerpons than what they did. This one did drop fairly strong, 38.71%, down to $20.77, down from $33.89. Then we've got the Dragapult. Dragapult has actually fallen quite a bit, more so than I think a lot of people expected. This is the full art variant, the full art Terra card. This one is down at $20.36, which isn't bad. It's dropped about 33% when you consider the hype and how excited this card is, how excitable this card is for a lot of people entering into the North American International Championships. Went from $30.45 down to $20.36. We've got the Gold Blood Moon Ursaluna. Again, historically, gold Pokemon cards outside of really Snorlax from Chilling Reign, they do not do well, and this one also not doing well. Went from $24.52. This one dropped our most so far, 50.77%, down to $12.07. Then we've got the Sinistcha EX Special Illustration Rare. This one is down to $21.05. Not too much of a drop, so it's not the cheapest of the special illustration rares. I think that one is still the cornerstone. However, it has dropped down to about $21. $21.05 is where it's sitting, so about 13.5% is where it's fallen over the past week. Enhanced Hammer has been hit pretty hard. Enhanced Hammer, not really a card that you see played a whole lot right now, even though there are a fair amount of special energies that are in circulation, that are in standard format. Enhanced Hammer, there has been 3 printings now of Enhanced Hammer from a gold perspective. You had one, I think, in Primal Clash as well, and then I think it was like Guardians Rising that you had another copy of Enhanced Hammer. But there's also a bunch of other regular art printings of it all over the place. It was a lot more popular of a card when decks like Seismitoad were in format, and people were playing a lot of control, a lot of disruption. Now you don't see as much disruption, despite the fact that you see a lot of control. And there's so much energy acceleration out there when it comes to basic that getting rid of a special energy doesn't do a whole lot. It seems like some people are trying to make it work and Crushing Hammer work, but it's going to be tough. This one has dropped 65.5%, which is a very, very large drop from $23.07 down to $7.95. Then we've got the Gold Rescue Board. You see that in a lot of Dragapult decks right now, especially because of the one retreat cost from a lot of Pokemon that you're going to be pairing up with Dragapult. Now you have your Dreepy, you have your Dracloak, you have Tatsugiri, you have your Natu and Exatu. Like, those are cards that you need one retreat cost for, and this gets rid of that, so you can kind of just circulate it out, putting up a new Pokemon into your active. So it is a very playable card right now. 16.27% is how far this one has dropped, down to $14.20. Speaking of the Tatsugiri, again, another very important card, especially in that Dragapult build. $11.78 is where this one has dropped to. This one is probably one of my favorites of the illustration rares in the set. Beautiful looking card. It's dropped about 23.31%. Then we've got the Teal Mask Ogerpon Gold card. This one is up 22%. The rest of the Ogerpons all rising up. This one's up to $18.27 from its release date price of $14.97. Unfair Stamp, the best ace spec in the set, but still nowhere near as playable as probably the Prime Catcher. I think that's what a lot of people are going to lean on, the Prime Catcher from Temporal Forces. $14.53 is where this released at. It's currently down to $8.86. So this is really where we expected a lot more A-Specs to be, considering the fact you get a couple of them per box and there's not as many of a variance per set. You only have six different variations of A-Specs in this set, so this makes a lot more sense as far as price points go. It's down to $8.86. Here's the regular art Dragapult right here. This one's down to $11.03. It came out at $14.12, which really wasn't bad. I think a lot of people were expecting it to sell for $20 to $25. It's dropped about 22% over the past week. The full art Carmine has also gone up a little bit. So this one went from $11.05 up to $11.45. So not a huge jump, about 3.62%, but continuing to trend upward. Normally you don't see that with full art trainers. You'll see it with the special illustration rares, but not the ultra rare trainers. It usually doesn't happen. Here's the Greninja EX, the full art Terra. This one went from $10.98 down to $7.59, so that's about a 31% drop there. The illustration rare Chansey, this is a beautiful looking illustration rare with the different Pokemon on there. This one went up a little bit to $11.80 from $10.95 on release date, so it's jumped up 7.75%, 7.76%. The full art Perrin, this one has dropped a little bit. It's down about 37%, down to $6.03 from its $9.52 release day price point. The Wellspring Mask Ogerpon full art Terra card, this one trending down to bulk pricing. $8.53 is where this came out of the gates. Now it's down 55.5%, down to $3.80. A large gain from the Teal Mask Ogerpon full art shiny Terra, whatever you want to call it. $8.15 is where this started at. It's up about 82% to $14.82. Now, again, a lot of that is just because of the buzz of playing with Raging Bolt and the North American International Championships. And it could continue to trend upward depending on how it performs at NAIC. With Worlds right around the corner, people are going to want to prep their decks for testing and for what they're going to play at Worlds. Here's the Infernape illustration rare. This one dropped a little bit, not bad, down 15% to $6.05. The Luminous Energy Gold card, this one's actually up, which is very interesting. Usually Gold Energy cards don't do well at all, but this one has gained a little bit of ground. It's up almost 23% from where it was on release day. It went from $7.08 up to $8.70. Iron Thorns EX, which is a fun deck to play, but not necessarily super competitive. $6.68 is where it started at. It's only dropped about 12%, which isn't bad, down to $5.90. The full art Blissey EX has dropped 7.08, so only single digits for the Blissey. It's down to $6.04, not bad at all. Here's the regular art Teal Mask Ogerpon. This one's up 57% from $6.40 on release day up to $10.07, continuing to trend in that upward direction as that buzz continues to grow. Legacy Energy A-Spec started out at $5.80. This one's dropped about 35%, down to $3.75. Here's the illustration rare Applin. This one went from $5.42 down to $3.58. Not bad. Festival Grounds, really fun deck to play. It's down about 34%. Screamtail EX, the full art, went from $5.38 down to $1.82. So basically bulk pricing, one of the biggest drops we have in the set, 66.17%. Then we've got the Blood Moon Ursaluna is down 13.5% from $5.35 down to $4.63. The full art Kieran is down 11% from $5.13 to $4.56. And here is that illustration rare Hisuian Growlithe that we were talking about before. This is the biggest gainer in the set over the past week. This one is up 185%. 184.74 to be exact. It went from $5.11 up to $14.55. Again, building that picture with the Perrin, I think, draws a lot of attention. Also, the fact that it's Hisuian Growlithe, and a lot of people just like the card, like that Pokemon in general, up to $14.55 and continuing to trend upward. Very strong growth on that one right there. The Hearthflame Mask Ogerpon, $4.95 on release day. It's down 53.74%, down to $2.29. Here's that Cornerstone that we were talking about before. This one currently sitting at $3.67, down from $4.46, so about a 17.71% drop on that one. Then we have the illustration rare Diplin, really cool looking card, but relatively cheap. $4.29 is where it started. It's relatively flat, only up about 3%, sitting at $4.42. $4.42. And we've got the full art Palafin. This one's down 62.38%. Very bulky pricing right now, from $4.20 down to $1.58. We just got a few more here, I think. So here's the illustration rare Pinsir. This one doing extremely well, up 57% from $4.15 up to $6.51. Beautiful artwork on that one. Really cool looking. Same with the Frostlass. Really reminds me of that Grusha from Paldea Evolved. $4.04 is where this started at. It's up to $4.78. Currently about an 18% gain on that one. The Scoop Up Cyclone A-Spec is all the way down to $2.07. It's dropped down from $3.72. So down about 44.5% on that one. Here's the Hassel. This one has dropped 56.5%. Bulk pricing on this one down to $1.54. The Torkoal is down to $2.29. That's down about 34.76%. And the last one we're going to look at is the Lana's Aid Full Art. This one's actually up a little bit, but started out very cheap. $3.28 is where it was on release day. Currently selling at $3.70. So not too much of a gain there as far as percentage goes. A little bit better, 12.8%. So those are the movements that we've seen. Obviously, a lot of it being impacted by buyouts and things like that. That's why it's so important to make a budget, write down cards, write down prices that you're willing to pay for them, and wait for them to get to that point. If you don't get to that point, then don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. If you get to that point, then you can be happy with the price that you paid for it. But don't freak out when you see cards like Carmine skyrocketing. This set's going to be around for a while. It's going to be in collection boxes. It's going to be in tins. There's going to be, even with the busted pull rates or the not great pull rates, it's still going to be enough quantities out there, enough of the supply out there for these not to like completely blast off, more so than what they already have. So it's really important not to lose your mind or anything like that. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to the video. I really hope you guys are doing well. Hit that subscribe button if you appreciate the content. If you don't like the content, then don't hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment, leave a like. It goes a long way for the algorithm. Talk to you guys again tomorrow. Until next time, peace.